Warning, this is going to be a long video, so just buckle up. We're going over everything. Ascendancy choice paralysis. This is actually kind of a good problem right now. I'm feeling like I have no idea what ascendancy to choose. They buffed a lot of the ascendancies. Melee is getting some love. I just don't know what to pick, really. I do know that I want to try Werewolf. I don't know which ascendancy is going to benefit it the most. So let's go through all of them and see what we can find. So the first thing, Rake. It's a physical slash that can scale with cold, and it knocks shards of ice off enemies. And then those shards of ice explode on the ground around the enemy. Pounce, so you can leap to an enemy and apply a mark. When you kill the enemy that's marked, you can summon a wolf minion. You can also socket into this mark skills like Voltaic Mark, Freezing Mark, or probably also the Blood one. In that sense, it kind of works a lot like Hand of Chayula, where you can dash to the enemy and mark and curse them. Also, you should know that they've changed the marks. There's no more explosions of damage on Freezing Mark, but you do gain as extra ice or lightning damage by using those. So like, yeah, there's no more explosion with Voltaic Mark or Freezing Mark. However, Bloodhound's Mark releases an explosion. So there is that one that you could try to like scale a little AoE into the mark. But unless you're really building into blood loss and bleed and stuff, it's probably not going to be that effective. Okay, we've got Arctic Howl. So this is a war cry. You get chilled ground and you get cold damage, and then your wolf pack gets cold damage. Lunar Assault. Here is the skill that we'll probably be trying to build around. This is like Ice Strike. So Lunar Assault converts 80% of physical damage to cold damage, 240% more magnitude of chill, 240% more freeze buildup. So the attack damage on Lunar Assault is 40% at level 1. On Ice Strike, by comparison, the attack damage is 60% at level 1. So we don't exactly know how Lunar Assault will scale, but it does have a lot of freeze and chill buildup, which you can get damage by freezing and chilling stuff, actually. And then Ice Strike is faster, though. It's got 140% attack speed of base. Lunar Assault has 110% of attack speed at base. We don't know what the quality is of Lunar Assault. For Ice Strike, the quality is more attack speed. So Lunar Assault, then, could end up being a slower version of Ice Strike. All right, so then the other move we have here is Cross Slash. This one is the one where he jumps backwards. The name Cross Slash just reminds me of Chrono Trigger. But anyway, it will activate the mark that you put on the target. What that means is that you don't have to kill the target to get the benefit of the mark. So you can get extra damage, either ice or lightning, and it will summon a minion wolf. So here's Lunar Blessing. So this might be what you need to really make the werewolf melee work. This has a cooldown time of 10 seconds. It's a buff that gives you attack speed. You gain a bunch of damage as cold, and you get movement speed for you and any wolf pack minions. The buff lasts longer if you use more rage for it as well. So that's something else to consider here, is how are you going to be getting rage on your character? Now that we've gone over some of the skills and you kind of have an idea of like what some of the gameplay loop might be for that, let's just look at all the ascendancies now. The Infernalist. First of all, Pyromantic Pact. It doubles your mana, and then once it reaches its maximum, you ignite yourself. This is nice because it basically solves mana for you. You also can get the Infernal Hound as a companion. The companion can aggro for you. Also, the Infernal Hound automatically ignites things, and there are support gems in the game that can improve your damage based on whether or not something is ignited, and there's stuff on the tree for that as well. You can also put supports in him that will make it so that he absorbs some damage for you, so you can be a little tankier with him. And we also don't know what the strength inside of the tree is going to have for any type of ally, companion, minion synergy there, but it might have something that really makes this way better than you think. So here's something else to consider. So for crit, there is a crit chance node here and a 50% more crit damage bonus node here. So the problem with this is that you take life and energy shield damage when you critically hit. So once again, you'd have to solve for that so that you basically don't take damage when you're ignited, you know? But that's a huge damage multiplier if you're going crit. Now, the other thing you can do is all damage from you and allies in your presence contributes to flammability and ignite magnitudes. Now, because they are fleshing out the strength inside of the tree with minions for the wolf pack, Jonathan said in the Talkative Try interview that the wolf pack was very weak in the end game and that they were buffing it and updating the passive tree to accommodate for that. So you could actually get decent wolf pack with that because it affects your allies, or if you just are more solo and you have huge crits and stuff like with Grinning Immolation, you could take that and take this and start igniting the crap out of things. And they also said, by the way, that there are ignite buffs coming to that side of the tree. I'm not going to talk about demon form. I don't think that will synergize well with anything for shapeshifting, because there's a cooldown on demon form. So I would just kind of not worry about that. And then finally, we have Altered Flesh. And then beyond that, you can get some max life nodes here, as well as you can reserve that life for Energy Shield, or for Spirit, or for more mana. So all of those are just kind of nice to have the option for, and this defensive node is nice for melee like Werewolf. Okay, let's go over Blood Mage a little bit. The skills gain a base life cost equal to base mana cost, and you get life remnants. This could be interesting because you will basically be a very leechy type werewolf, which kind of is on theme if you think about it, like all this blood loss and blood leech and stuff like that. So you could take Blood Mage for that. You get bleeding on crit, and then you get aggravated bleeding on cursed targets. There's also this node here. Elemental damage contributes to bleeding. So the werewolf has some ice-based attacks, right? So that will now contribute to the bleeding. And remember, I had mentioned earlier that there's Bloodhound Mark, which is a blood loss mark that does explode on death of the monster. So you could get some AoE clear with that. That would also mean that Herald of Blood would be something that you could use. A Blood Werewolf could be kind of sick with Blood Mage here. There's some other things here like Curse Effect. So you got some increased magnitudes of cursing. Maybe you're throwing on Blasphemy with Temporal Chains to slow enemies around you. And then there's also this here. Enemies you curse have 15% of life reserved. Monsters are getting a bit of a life buff in the end game while the pack size is being reduced a little bit. So you could actually diminish that buff by, 15% by reserving some of their life. So that's kind of interesting. We get some life here. This is not bad either. 25% of life loss from hits is prevented. And then you lose that much life over 4 seconds. So that's not bad either. That means the hits you take won't hit as hard. And if you are leeching and stuff, you'll be gaining that back and kind of outdoing that loss over the 4 seconds. You get more life here. And then you can also gain additional life equal to 100% of the item energy shield on equipped body armor. This side is all crit for spells, and so I don't think I would go that way, although the last node does have crit damage bonus per 50 life. So that's something, but I really don't think it's worth all these points. All right, on to the Lich. If we go over to the right side here, it's got the Eternal Life one where your life cannot change while you have Energy Shield. So if you can give yourself low life, you could take advantage of a lot of the low life support gems and passives on the tree for a melee werewolf. That could make you very strong. There is also this, because power charges aren't too hard to generate in the game. There's many ways to do that. 30% increased energy shield if you've consumed a power charge recently. It might be kind of cool with the changes to the palm abilities, like Killing Palm now dashes to 3 targets, it says. You could have a quarterstaff on swap and be generating power charges that way, and then switching to werewolf with a 30% increase to your energy shield. Might be kind of nice while you're leveling or something. Well, there's a nice node here for increased energy shield, and then you've got the double jewel socket thing here, so that increases it by double. More energy shield here. Nothing here because this has to do with spells. We've got some AoE of curses, so I mean, once again, maybe some Blasphemy, Temp Chains tech there. And then Rupture the Soul. This is not bad for clear here. Look at this. Cursed enemies killed by you or by allies. Remember, we have a wolf pack that is getting buffs, according to Jonathan. have a 33% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their max life as chaos damage. And then we get more area of effective curses. So I'm just thinking like Blasphemy, Temp Chains going down here and just expanding the area of effect of the curses, and then wolf packing it up and exploding everything with chaos damage sounds kind of sick. Also, Incessant Cacophony, which has an additional curse that can be applied. That's really good too. That's all really not bad for a werewolf build with some minions. Necromantic Conduit. While you are not on low mana, you and allies, so the wolf pack, have Unholy Might. And Unholy Might is a 30% gain as extra chaos damage buff. Now, the downside of this is that you lose 5% of mana per second. You'd have to solve mana at the same time, and that just might be a little bit too much for you to have to worry about when trying to be a melee werewolf build, especially if you're using the minions and stuff too. However, if you can gear yourself up to have lots of mana regen, any mana leech that you do could also keep it going so that while you're at least fighting, you have plenty of mana to keep up to get the buff. All right, there's more mana here. And then Blackened Heart. 4% increased magnitude of Unholy Might buffs you grant per 100 max mana. So this is like, once again, are you going to be buffing your mana pool very high? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't figured out how you would actually build that, but perhaps maybe you have an idea now how you could just go like tons of chaos. There could be something to this for like clearing and stuff. The additional curses sounds nice for Blasphemy Aura, and the expanded auras, expanded area of effect sounds kind of nice for that. And the explosions, the rupture of the soul, that would be kind of like a Zealous Inquisition style thing happening for mapping. Okay, so for the Abyssal Lich, it's mostly the same except for over here. There's a lot to do with minion skills. There's some reservation here. There's also a lot to do with skeletal minions. Minion duration, and then there's also some stuff where you can have these offerings that can like affect you instead of minions and stuff. I don't know. I feel like this is a little bit too niche and difficult for the werewolf setup right now, so I don't really have much to say about the Abyssal Lich, and don't think that it would make the best werewolf build, especially since you can't even get this until can fight Kulamak and stuff. Will Deadeye make a great werewolf? Real quick, I think this one's going to be quick here. There's some increased effective mark skills on here, you know, and I just don't think that like Deadeye is going to be that great for this. Yeah, there's Tailwind, but if you get hit, you lose it. And it's got nerfed, so it's not as fast and it's not as much of a damage reduction. So in melee range, it's even less effective. I just don't think it's going to be that good. There's some skill speed stuff, but they also took away the skill speed for charge regulation, which would have been probably the best thing, you know, and I don't know. I just don't think Deadeye is any good for Werewolf Ascendancy. Pathfinder is interesting because they changed it a lot. A lot of you have most likely heard that a lot of these travel nodes that are attribute ones could eventually be changed to global defenses or damage or cost efficiency. Global defenses is everything, so it's energy, shield, evasion, and armor. Imagine like the unique body armor from Arbiter of Ash, like a well-rolled one with 5 sockets, and then you just take the global defenses things. You literally get armor, evasion, and energy shield all up at the same time. That could be kind of interesting. Also, because the Pathfinder is good at poison stuff, it would be kind of interesting to stack poisons. I could see that working, especially with the Plague Finger unique that makes it so that all damage contributes to poison magnitudes. You know, be a bit of an homage to the Rabies Druid from Diablo 2. That would be kind of interesting. The movement speed stuff could be really fun as well, since they're changing that now so that you could actually be avoiding heavy stuns while sprinting. No movement speed penalties with Pathfinder. Yeah, Pathfinder just sounds like the utility of it is going to make for a good Ascendancy for just about anything. Also, they're adding another node now so that you can start over in the Sorceress side or in the Warrior side. So if it turns out that like you wanted to level the Pathfinder, come over here and just kind of stack poisons and everything, and then maybe use the werewolf shapeshifting while you're doing that for some fun through the campaign. But then you want to respec and then head up this direction where all the strength and intelligence stuff is, and then maybe some really good nodes for werewolf and all that. You could do that. So yeah, I think Pathfinder is probably going to be part of the meta this league, and probably good for just about anything. I think a lot of people might even just start as Poison Pathfinder with bows or crossbows. I think they also might just start Lightning Arrow Deadeye again, and then switch to Pathfinder in the late end game when they have like incredibly good jewels and stuff. Yeah. So Pathfinder's good. All right, Warrior, Titan. Hulking form, can't go wrong with it. Literally can't go wrong with this at all. Whatever they add to the strength intelligence side of the tree is going to be better with Titan, no matter what. Obviously, with all the slam stuff Titan has, it would kind of make sense to be more like a bear. You can build up your stuns really easy with Titan, and you can get more damage against stun enemies with Titan, and they've added a new thing so that surprising strength is nerfed. It's 25% more damage, not 50, but it has aftershocks now around you. So that's some more AoE stuff. And you can get some life over here and some life regen. So like, this is just like none of this is bad, right? It's just like, okay, do you want more damage and more stun? Do you want more life? Do you want 50% increased effective small passives? Sure, you can literally do anything with that. Okay, Warbringer. Warbringer's nice right now because Imploding Impacts has got reworked so that when you break armor on an enemy, they take increased damage from all sources. That's excellent. You also break armor with hits of any kind. Doesn't have to be a physical. So Warbringer's kind of good for that. He does have Warcaller's Bellow, so he ignores Warcry cooldowns. There's going to be howling and Warcrying in the game for Wolf, so you can have unlimited howls, essentially. That sounds pretty good. There's also Ancestral Spirits and the Totems. These give buffs as well. I played Warbringer in 0.3 with Totems and Fissures and Rolling Slam and like Armor Break and everything, and it was really good. They give you like attack speed, rage buildup, increased damage. One of them is like a caster type and will encage certain enemies. Depending on what the strength inside says for like allies and minions, and like there's even some totem stuff over there, so like you could do some weapon swap stuff so that on swap you're using like say a quarterstaff. And you're just like laying down totems really quick. By the way, that's what I did. Quarterstaff on swap for totems is really nice for attack speed, and it'll help you actually like lay down the totems. Like you can get like 3 of them down like really quick, and then you could swap to a wolf. The totems are up. They're summoning the ancestral spirits, giving you the buffs. If you're going wolf pack and stuff too, maybe there would be some synergy there with all of that, because all those things are going to get buffed too. All your allies get buffed from the buffs from the totems. So you can also put utility things on the totems. So say that the spirits from the totems aren't really that strong. Well, you can actually put blind and maim and stuff like that on those. Yeah, I think breaking armor and doing more damage against broken armor is really good. Infinite war cries, the ancestral spirits, all good. I don't think the block stuff is going to be very useful since talismans are two-handed. However, I think that Jonathan or Mark said there might be a unique that allows you to equip it in one hand. So depending on how good that is, not really sure. But if that's a really good item, and then maybe you could do something with the block here. But mostly, it's just going to be the armor break, the spirits, and the infinite war cries. Going to be good. And of course, you're close to this side of the tree with Warbringer. Okay, Smith of Kitava is getting a ton of reworks. Now look, there's too many reworks for me to go over with this build, but as far as I know, Smith of Kitava looks to be probably one of the best League Start hardcore ascendancies. It's got so many defensive things. It also has the cast on fire spell thing, and they've changed that so that it no longer costs mana for summoning like volcanoes underneath monsters and stuff. There's actually a build in Diablo 2 where you can use a rune word that does this. It actually does summon volcanoes underneath monsters when you attack with melee. That would be kind of cool. You could kind of recreate that build from Diablo 2. So I'm thinking if you went werewolf with it, you would definitely want to try to scale the fire spells. And since this side of the tree is getting reworked to accommodate for like hybrid builds that can do spellcasting and melee shapeshifting, I think this actually will work out really well. You know, scale your fire resistance and get a lot of your defenses that way. The other thing is that there is a manifest weapon thing that's considered a companion and a minion. So I'm wondering if the strength inside is going to lean into some of that stuff. If so, it could be really good going that way with some shape-shifting stuff and some synergy with companions or minions and using the Manifest Weapon. I wonder how Manifest Weapon will work with a talisman, though. Will it even work at all? Does it just float around like a little claw-looking like thing? You know, what happens with that? Do you get another like werewolf? Probably not. But I'm just saying, what happens with Manifest Weapon and a talisman? I don't really know. Okay, so Stormweaver. So this is obviously built more around spellcasting, so probably not going to be the best choice for a werewolf melee type build. However, there is something that it's getting, which is increased limit. Grants +2 to limit of elemental skills. Maybe the increased limit could be useful if you're doing some kind of hybrid thing with the werewolf. Maybe on weapon swap you have Frozen Locust, and you are backflipping 3 or 4 times and getting 4 of those to drop down. Could maybe like barrage nuke something with that many Frozen Locusts. But just think about any limit skill having 4 or 5 of them instead of 1. In terms of other stuff that would benefit like melee werewolf, you do have like all this stuff about double shocking and double chilling. So there's something there. But honestly, the rest of this stuff is all about collecting remnants and spell damage and spell crit and casting things with spells and like mana. So like very like at the bottom here, you get 20% of damage is taken from mana before life. So like that would be like a defensive node for you. So you'd have to go into mana. You might be able to do something with collecting the remnants from further away with like some weird support gem setup that has nothing to do with spellcasting. But yeah, I don't think Stormweaver is going to be like that awesome for werewolf. Chronomancer, I actually have made melee Chronomancers using Tempest Flurry and Gathering Storm, which got a buff this patch, Falling Thunder and stuff, and it's pretty good actually. It's not too bad. I used Whirling Assault as well with Chronomancer, which also got a huge buff. It's just nice that you can freeze time. This also got a buff, Inevitable Agony, and it ignores Curse Limit now. I made a video about that, and they either listened or I can predict the future. And so anyway, I don't know if it'll be good, but it'll be better. There's also some recoup stuff. So recoup can be a good way to build a Chronomancer, and that could be really useful for a melee werewolf. There's also the utility of slowing enemies in your presence by 20%. That's not bad for melee. There's cooldowns that you can ignore. You have a chance to ignore them, and there's also a way to time snap and reset a cooldown. So that could be really good for werewolf because there is that buff. You have Lunar Blessing, and with Lunar Blessing, you get the cold damage, the attack speed, the movement speed, right? So it could be pretty nice to have that double times in a row, maybe even 3 times in a row. So yeah, Chronomancer and Chronomancer too. Look, Chronomancer is right here. So you can go to the strength intelligence side, or if you wanted to go more like evasion energy shield based, you could just go that way too. So Chronomancer is not bad, and there's energy shield right off the bat over here. Chronomancer is really not a bad ascendancy for melee builds actually. Amazon's not a bad melee build, so you've got some really nice stuff here. Life Leech with elemental damage as well as physical. That's pretty good. You get increased Life Leech, you get some evasion there. You could go Stalking Panther and go all evasion on your helmet, gloves, and boots and double that, and then wear a different type of body armor, or maybe a unique body armor that doesn't have the best flat rolls. Maybe there's a really cool utility piece on that. There's some minion unique items, for example, that take up the body armor slot. That could be really good. There's another unique that has 50% of damage taken from mana before life. That got a buff this patch coming. There's lots of stuff you can do with stacking all evasion everywhere else except your chest piece with that. Then there's also just this too, all the accuracy stuff. So, you know, I've played Amazon twice now. One was an accuracy stacker. The other one was on my channel. It's the Pandemonious Ice Strike Amazon. And I feel like that entire build could just transfer right directly over to a werewolf build. It obviously goes on this side of the tree over here. The accuracy stuff though, accuracy is not very desirable for a lot of characters. And so it's kind of a dead stat for most players, which means it's like that trash is your treasure on Amazon. So you can get increased crit chance with huge accuracy rolls, and you can get increased flat physical on your weapon from huge accuracy on your weapon. There are also rune sockets that add accuracy to your weapon too. So you can get up to like 800 accuracy on a weapon. And then you can get crit chance and everything by just like putting accuracy in all your other slots, your rings. You can get it on your amulet. You can get it on your gloves. You can get support gems that increase accuracy per skill. And there's even other support gems that cost a little bit of spirit that increase your global accuracy. So there's lots of accuracy stuff that you can increase to increase your damage and crit chance here. I imagine that high accuracy on a talisman for Werewolf Shapeshift is probably going to be considered a bad stat. All right, the other thing too is that she's got this really good line here for speed and 50% more damage against enemies with an open weakness. This is really good for rare and unique monsters. You'll see that like a portion of the bar is like a different texture, and you just suddenly do 50% more damage. And if you go all the way to the end here, you get 40% increased skill speed. So that's really nice. That could be really nice to stack with the Lunar Blessing for the Werewolf, which gives you more attack speed and movement speed and cold damage. I'm just imagining that you're viciously fast if you do all of that. So first thing for Ritualist is that they buffed Ritual Sacrifice so that the duration is now up to 120 seconds at gem level 20, because you can steal modifiers from rares that can drastically improve your mapping experience now that can last that long. So that's pretty good. The other thing is there's this one here where you can trigger charms with if you don't have sufficient charges, it'll take some of your mana. Quite a big chunk of it, but it can trigger it still. So if you have a way to like mana leech and keep your mana up all the time, maybe you have a unique charm that you want to keep triggering somehow. So that's kind of nice for mapping, perhaps. But the main draw to go Ritualist is the +1 ring slot with the increased bonus. Maybe you throw on Ingenuity as well. So while this one doesn't feel like it does anything insanely special, it does have a few things on it that are pretty cool, and I don't think you could go wrong with it, really. Tactician is getting some buffs. 25% more damage against immobilized enemies. The Werewolf ability has a freeze thing to it, a pretty high freeze, which is considered an immobilization. The other thing that Tactician has is he does have minions deal 20% increased damage right here. Your wolf pack are minions. He's got some spirit. You can get reservation for your persistent buffs, 50%. Well, that's nice. You can stack on all kinds of auras and freaking heralds and stuff. You get some presence. There's also this here. Allies in your presence gain added attack damage equal to 25% of your main hand weapons damage. So if you're going with the wolf pack, man, this could be pretty good. That'll just buff their damage. There's also these things up here where you can place multiple banners. And then like there is this too here. It's like there's some totem stuff over here. I don't think this will help too much, but you can get a buff depending on what type of totem you place. If you do, for example, a Siege Ballista, you can get a 50% increased damage bonus against immobilized enemies. So that's like something, but really, I'm thinking that you would probably take the minion damage. You'd probably take the immobilization, increased damage and buildup, and you'd take the reservation stuff and the minion stuff here. Maybe the banner stuff. Okay, Witchhunter. Witchhunter is a really great Ascendancy. They buffed it so that your sorcery ward now also contributes against physical and chaos damage as well as all the elements. So that's really good defensively. Zealous Inquisition is absolutely excellent. Remember, monsters are getting a 40% increase to their life in tier 15 maps. So that means this does more damage, you know, and will compensate for that all on its own. This is great right out of the box. Like if you ascend one time and grab this, your character is instantly a lot better. There is Culling Strike is nice, Decimating Strike is nice too. And then over here, you have Weapon Master. 100 passive skill points become weapon set skill points. What's great about this is that the customization option here is humongous. So if you want to go Witch Hunter and do something cookie cutter, you're good. But if you want to do something crazy with weapon swap, then you can do that too. You know, it's just like it leaves the door open in the end game for you to respec your character entirely to something that like nobody has thought of before, or just to really hone in on the weapon swap. The other thing to consider is that the surround nodes are down here, right? Which is closest to the mercenary. And so the constricting command got one little nerf. You have to have an enemy near you, like for it to work. Before, you could just make it so that it worked when there were 0 enemies around you, as long as you had a 5 roll on the constricting command. But now they made it so that you're always required to have at least one enemy near you to be considered surrounded with whatever it rolls on the unique. But that's still not bad, okay? It's still going to be pretty useful. Like in a boss, it'll work still. And those nodes for the surrounded thing were pretty good, right? So that's another thing to consider is that you can go Witchhunter, you can use Constricting Command. The weapon swap passives are going to be really good. You can get a lot of movement speed using weapon swap still. So you could do that. I think Witchhunter is really good for pretty, like, you can't really go wrong anywhere you go now on this. You know, even this here too, this whole concentration thing that they have built in, which just seems like it seems confusing to read it. It's just like you just are going to do more damage. So there's damage. So you can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with Zealous Inquisition. Can't go wrong with building up your sorcery ward. The only thing about this is that it is armor and evasion based. And so like you're going to want to have to build up your armor and evasion really high. So that kind of limits what armor you're going to use. But still, you could probably get 10,000 freaking sorcery ward. All this stuff is good too. And then this is just here for people who want to min-max and customize their build. Yeah, Witchhunter is probably S tier. Okay, so Gemling Legionairre, how would this work for a werewolf build? I think that like this one is just kind of nice. You just get stuff that'll just help you. It doesn't do anything that insane in my opinion, but there's just good stuff here. Like, look, quality. You get to like +2 to level of like a skill that you want. So anything with an intelligence or dex or strength requirement, you pick one. Thaumaturgical dynamism, which basically just gives you a random charge every 5 seconds now. I think they buffed it. So yeah, every 5 seconds, you basically just get a charge. So there's definitely stuff you can do with that. And then there's all these weird bonuses over here. So like if you have so many support gems that are blue or red or green, you know, you can get resistances and stuff. Or these ones, you can get skill speed for the green ones, damage for the red ones, crit chance for the blue ones. All of that is good. All right, Monk, baby. So Monk would make a great werewolf, and we know that it would because Invoker Monk is a excellently built Ascendancy, crits ignoring elemental resistances, and they actually buffed and scatter them to the winds last patch, so trigger elemental expression on melee critical hit. And this got a huge buff so that it's actually useful now. I would definitely look into it. Look at some builds that people made with elemental expression in 0.3. It's not bad. You also have the trigger stuff got a buff. It says meta skills gain 35% more energy, but there's another line, and it says now additionally grants meta skills have 50% increased spirit reservation efficiency. You could do some kind of cool trigger build with Invoker even better now, and maybe go werewolf. And there's a bunch of trigger spell stuff like over on the right side of the tree here. All of that could be really good. Meditate, of course, you get 1.5 times your energy shield, but you have to charge it up. So you can actually do some cool weapon swap stuff with that, where you just get like a focus and a wand, and you have a lot of cast speed and energy shield recharge rate and stuff, so that like you can buff this to just instantly jump your energy shield back up. And then of course, like just extra damage as lightning and cold right here. Lead Me Through Grace, you get spirit for energy shield or evasion on your equipped body armor, so that you don't need spirit on your amulet or on your armor. That's really nice. So yeah, I think Invoker Monk as a werewolf could be really good because we've seen Ice Strike Invoker before. If Werewolf is not good enough though on that and you're stuck with Invoker, well, there's two things you could do then. One would be to stop using the werewolf and just go straight up Ice Strike, you know, and just play it like people have been playing it. At least that way you're not stuck if you want to continue in the league, and then maybe reroll after you get some good stuff. The other thing though is that you could just like path up this way and grab some skill speed and some crit chance and stuff like that or whatever. Or just path up here and then go this way and then just make your way over to the other side. You know, you could just do that and then just benefit from all the great stuff that the Invoker has. If you're going to go up to the strength inside with Invoker, and let's say armor, energy shield, hybrid stuff is decent, well, Meditate's kind of sweet for that too. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just think that like Invoker's going to be solid. If you pick it, you can make it work. It's not going to be like the wrong choice. Okay, Acolyte of Chayula. Now, Jonathan said in his interview with Talkative Try that he wants to just completely rework Chaos. He thinks Chaos needs like its own ailment or something that it does that's unique to it. Right now, it just does chaos damage, and a lot of monsters don't have chaos resistance. That's kind of how chaos is. I kind of agree with him. There isn't anything that's like that sensational or that cool about chaos. But anyway, if you're wondering, Acolyte of Chayula, they buffed everything. They doubled everything that it does, basically. Just everything is double as good as it was before. So, can you go wrong with this Ascendancy? With those buffs, it seems like it'll be fine. Like collecting the remnants and all that sounds like a little bit annoying, but there is skill speed and stuff like that on here. You can get some pretty decent leech where it scales off of chaos and physical. You can get your chaos resistance pretty much covered with Acolyte of Chayula with this node here. The Void Illusion, where you dodge roll and then you get like this thing, they buffed it so that it is twice as strong. I still don't think it's probably going to be that great or anything, but there's that. Like, I don't know. You could try it. It might look cool to be a chaos Void Illusion werewolf thing. For that, I feel like it would just look cool, but I don't think Acolyte of Chayula is like the best Ascendancy for a werewolf, but I think you could probably make it work. I think that getting it to just function is gonna be fine. But like, it just doesn't excite me as an Ascendancy for that, All right, finally we have the 2 druid Ascendancies. So now, first off, Wisdom of the Magi. Gain the benefits of additional bonded modifiers on runes and idols. So basically your socketables are going to have additional modifiers to them. That could be really good. I mean, I have no idea what that's all going to be yet, but I'm just saying that's probably going to be really good. Especially imagine like you kill Arbiter, you get like the unique body armor from him, you corrupt it, it's got 5 sockets in it. You drop 5 different runes in there with all these sweet modifiers. That could be kind of awesome for your body armor. Here's this one too. Sacred Flow. Gain 40 spirit for each available empty charm slot. Dude, 120 free spirit, which you just don't use a charm. In the end game, though, I will say the freezing charm and the stun charm are really good. Like, you kind of feel like you need them a lot. But then again, maybe you can make up for that in the tree just fine, or just how you play. The 120 spirit just sounds really nice. And now we also know that Rage is going to be something that you're going to need to build up to buff yourself for the shape-shifting stuff. Werewolf has the expenditure of Rage to get the Lunar Blessing for your werewolf. So getting Rage is pretty easy on this class. No inherent loss of Rage. All right, so that's pretty good. And then what you got to do is just improve your mana regeneration, and you can get more Rage regeneration. So that sounds pretty good. There's some recoup of life and energy shield here. Interesting. I know on the tree there is something called Glazed Flesh. 3% of damage taken recouped as life, mana, and energy shield. So there is stuff like that up here that you could stack with life and energy shield recoup over here on this Ascendancy. But yeah, I'm thinking that the Shaman Ascendancy for Druid is going to be really good for Werewolf, actually. At first glance, it kind of didn't stand out too much because it wasn't like, hey, here's the Werewolf Ascendancy, But it's got plenty on there to build into and use. All right, that brings us over to the Oracle Ascendancy. What a weird one, right? They revealed this, and it was like very surprising. I kind of like that about GGG, how they surprise you with some stuff. This is not what I expected. This is not what anyone expected, really. I think what people wanted, to be honest, though, was I think they wanted the Diablo 2 skill trees. They wanted elemental, shapeshifting, summoning. I think that's what they wanted for Ascendancies for Druid. We didn't get that. We got something very different for Shaman and for Oracle. So I kind of applaud them for that in the one hand. And on the other hand, I still do kind of wish there was something like that too. But here we go, Oracle. So Oracle has, as you've probably heard, some really weird nodes. One of them just reveals like over 100 new passives on the passive tree. I don't know if it's all located in the strength inside or if there's some somewhere else, but I think it's just there. The other thing it does too is it gives you this one here, Traveler's Wisdom. This means that you could take a keystone, like let's say Zealot's Oath, and it will get a medium radius around here that you can allocate skills that you're not connected to on the tree. So you could just take multiple keystones and do that. Like you could take Zealot's Oath, Mind Over Matter, and then just collect whatever ones you want that are in the radius. There's also some defensive stuff here, like reduced crit damage bonus, enemy crit chance against you is unlucky. So like crits, it seems like will be weak against you, which is kind of nice, especially for mapping when you get those maps where it's like monsters have a ton of crit chance and crit damage bonus. Those could be good for that. And then it's got some weird kind of Chronomancer stuff. It's like you can see the future, and the future version of the boss you're fighting or whatever appears, and you can like attack that and like potentially get double damage on it and stuff. I don't know. This one is up in the air entirely. It just depends on how good those hidden passives are, I think. I don't think I would try to start with this, though, for Werewolf. Like, I just don't see anything that's going to benefit melee too much on this, besides maybe some of those defensive things that I talked about, but those are also just pretty niche with crit. All right, so what I'll say is that I'm not exactly sure which one I'm going to go with, but I'll say that this one surprised me a little bit when I kind of went through it. It was like, I could see Blasphemy being really good with this, with those Chaos Explosions, and I can see how the Wolf Pack could be greatly buffed by this side over here on the Lich. That's kind of something that surprised me a little bit. Infernalist could be interesting with some of the companion stuff as well. If you're going Ignites, it could be kind of nice. There's some defensive stuff, right? Pathfinder seems like a very interesting option, especially for min-maxing an endgame and doing something different. Could be really good for leveling too with all the poison stuff. I don't think you can go wrong with Warbringer or Titan or Smith of Kitava. Honestly, each one of them is going to focus on different things. Like Smith is going to have great defenses with the fire spell stuff that you're going to try to do. Titan is like hulking form alone makes it just good. It's not that exciting, but it's good. And then Warbringer with all of these armor break stuff and everything, that's going to be fine. That's going to be really good. Remember, you can support all of your attacks with armor explosion, you know? So that's really good. And then you can, and since the werewolf has freeze capability, that means Herald of Ice is on the table. And if you do enough ice damage, your armor break can freeze and trigger Herald of Ice. So maybe Porcelain Ring would be good on a cold Warbringer that turns into a cold werewolf. Ritualist, can't go wrong with the extra ring slot. Amazon, I already told you, accuracy stacking, and then this is good. Really good defensive options if you go to the right side and get a lot of evasion and stuff. That's kind of end game, I would say, min-maxing those slots for Stalking Panther. If not, you just go straight up evasion energy shield. You can check out my build, the Pandemonious Ice Strike Amazon, the one that's me like this sleeping. It's the unique that's slept on. They buffed that unique, by the way, too, so you don't have to worry about cold res anywhere else on your gear. These skill speed and more damage for open weakness is great. And then I think Witchhunter is really strong. I think Witchhunter is really good. You're close to the nodes that you need for Constricting Command if you want to go with that. Almost like the Pathfinder, the Weapon Master just opens up so many options for where you can path and what you can do on weapon swap and stuff. So Weapon Master with Witchhunter for endgame could be really interesting. Tactician has some interesting stuff for the wolves too, and for immobilization. And then Gemling is just kind of like generically good. Invoker is not going to be bad, and definitely won't be bad. You could go with that. And then there could be something very interesting with Blood Mage. That also kind of surprised me when I was looking into it a little bit. I'm like, maybe there's a type of life leech, life stacking, blood loss werewolf build in there somewhere. Maybe it's in there, but I'm not sure. So anyway, what do you think? Which one kind of just seems like, yeah, that sounds really good? There's also, of course, there's also a safe bet here with the Shaman because of the rage regeneration and stuff and the no inherent loss of rage. I do think that's going to be really good for a werewolf build. The extra spirit and the new modifiers for the runes and socketables. Those three things, basically. And then you can even get some recoup in there. So it's a little bit of defensive stuff. There's also, I think I forgot to mention, the Avatar of Evolution. So these are like kind of like Altered Flesh on the Infernalist. This is a really good Ascendancy for Werewolf. What do you guys think? Let me know what you want to roll, because I'm going Werewolf for sure. But which Ascendancy to pick? I don't know. I really don't know. There's a couple that are standing out for sure that would seem like the easiest route to go. And then there's a few that just seem like, oh, that could be really interesting, you know. But we'll see. Maybe we end up rolling a few characters. I was gonna maybe only do 1 or 2 characters this league, but maybe I end up doing 3 or something and really trying out some of these ascendancies to figure out if anything cool can happen with Werewolf. All right, talk to you later.